All right, so hi everybody.
Hey.
Hi. Scott Robbins.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to DACA.
Thank you. So, I'm the guy that made this CD that it's called Bronze Nemesis. Don't play it yet, you're giving it all away.
It auto played.
That's incredible.
Nope. There we go.
All right. So this is the culmination of a long-held dream and something that I thought about for many, many years, and then I spent a great deal of time writing the music, and the whole process took me more than 10 years to get to this point. It took a long time to get the music performed and finally get in the studio and record it. It's very involved music, very dramatic. I had to go into the studio and add a lot of sounds and textures and little percussion elements and things and get the music just where I wanted it to be. And then it took about 3 years to sort out all of the various permissions to use the artwork and the character and the name, the likeness, and all of that. So it's I'm very happy that this is finally out. It was officially released on Lester Dent's birthday, October 12th, a couple of days after your birthday, right? Oh, yeah. Yours. Yeah. So it's finally out. I'm very happy with some of the buzz that it started to generate already. We were in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. We got a big performance coming up in New York City at one of the major clubs on Wednesday, the 24th. So any of you who have pals in New York City, tell them to come out and hear us. The group is called the Doctet, and the titles, I selected titles because I felt that some of these titles were very suggestive of music, very suggestive of sound. I'm a composer, I'm a guy who has a very large array of amazing and unusual instruments that I like to write for and use in my projects. And, you know, I started thinking about the Doc Savage stuff, which I was into from boyhood, like all of you. And the more I thought about it, the more I became convinced that there was a lot of music potential in this material, and in these, particularly in these titles. Man of Bronze, The Secret in the Sky, He Could Stop the World, Fortress of Solitude, Mad Eyes, The Metal Master, The Golden Man, Land of Always Night, The Living Fire, The Man Who Shook the Earth, Weird Valley, and The Mental Wizard. That's the program on this thing. So, where should I begin? Well, let me say this. First of all, I wrote an article in Jay's Big Book of Bronze, which I hope you're all going to pick up and read. It's a very long article. It goes into great depth about every aspect of this, and I don't have. I'm going to put everybody to sleep if I try to get into that. But just to give you an idea of it, I felt strongly that there was a musical project to be done with this material. And I chose as my inspiration the titles themselves. It's not so much an attempt to tell the story, the narrative of what's happening in each book. It's not so much a depiction of the cover. It's based more just from the titles themselves, which are very evocative and suggestive. I used a lot of different sounds that seem to lend themselves to these titles. For example, The Man Who Shook the Earth. You can all hear music, right? When you think about that title like that, The Man Who Shook the Earth. So the piece starts out with this giant drum I brought home from Brazil when I was on tour in Brazil. It's called Treme Terra, which translates as earthquake. That's actually the name of this instrument. And that starts off the piece, kind of rumbling from the distance and then coming closer and closer. And things develop and evolve, and then in comes the giant saxophone, which you see here. This looks like some kind of a gag, but this is a real saxophone. There's a photo on the back of me playing it. And this is the painting on the front. I'll explain more about the cover in a moment. So anyway, the giant saxophone is taller than me. It's a contrabass sax, very, very rare, huge cavernous sound. I think it's made for something called The Man Who Shook the Earth. So other pieces, Mad Eyes, kind of describes this oncoming delirium, this slithering madness, as it says on the back of the cover. I used two vintage Moog theremins. I promised Jay, because he's interested in the Moog synthesizer, I promised I would speak about this a little bit. I have these two Moog theremins, which are actually quite rare. One of them is from 1954. It's the first instrument that Moog commercially made. He made it while he was in college. He made 20 of them. And his father helped him build the cabinet. And it's got an amazing sound that's full of all of these overtones and undertones, a very complex voice that this thing has. Perfect for a piece called Mad Eyes. And then the other theremin is from the 60s. It's called the Vanguard model, and it was used in the particular one I have was used in the movie Theremin and Electronic Odyssey. I don't know if anybody knows this. Yeah. If you watch the movie, you see this instrument in there. Moog signed it and everything, and he sent me a new pair of antennas for it. So I spent a lifetime with these sounds, and I have my studio at home, which I call my laboratory, and this is a place that's full of amazing instruments. It's my fortress of solitude, in fact. I can go there anytime and play around with sounds and come up with compositions. So one of the things I said in Jay's book that I want to point out to you is that this is very adventurous music. It's not probably the kind of material that any of you are used to hearing. It's not dance music, it's not background music, it's not elevator music. It's music that is really designed to take you by the shoulders and thrust you into this world, whatever it is. And while some are very resistant to the idea of music functioning in that way, my feeling is Doc Savage is all about that. You know, he was above all an adventurer. And it would be a mistake, I think, to put music to the Doc Savage titles and not have it be a very adventurous music which demands a lot of concentration and attention. It places great demands on the listener's ability to go where they've never gone before, and to be open to new and strange, disorienting experiences. Because these are all qualities that Doc Savage had in abundance. So I'm asking that of the listener. And I'm curious to know what people will think of it. And I welcome any and all opinions, pro, con, whatever, about how this music comes across to you. So,
can you tell your Odyssey real quick of getting Jim Mama to agree
yeah.
with that? I have a story.
Yeah, everybody wants to know about it. About that. And then I have a few sounds. I'm going to demonstrate some sounds, and then if that doesn't clear the room, we'll try a couple cups from the CD. If that doesn't. All right, so briefly, just to tell a story, a project like this, it's not something you just record and put out there and call it the Scott Robinson Quintet. You know, this has to be of a piece. This has to be a package. This has to be something which lives up to the Jim Bama covers and all the rest of it. So I thought, okay, I had this concept. This is my laboratory, right? And this is a giant sax that lives in there. This is a big bass marimba that Sun Ra plays on a few recordings. So I wanted to put Doc Savage into my laboratory. You know, very often in the Doc Savage covers, he's poised for action, and looming over him behind is some great looming menace. So that's got to be the giant sax. So this is the cover I envisioned, actually putting Doc in the laboratory with the giant sax menacing him from behind. So I'm thinking, who can I get to paint this, you know, and do it in something approaching the Bama style. And I decided I really had to, even though I knew it was impossible, I had to reach out to Jim Bama, or James Bama, as everybody knows it, and just ask. You know, I would hate myself if I didn't at least ask if there was any chance that he could be commissioned to do something like that. So I wrote a letter. I got a hold of his address from somebody. I wrote a letter. I said, look, here's what I'm doing. I love your work. I've got this project. I know you've moved long past all of this stuff, but gee, I just thought I'd ask. Here's my bio. Here's some of my discography, some of the stuff I did. And he writes me right back and says, wow, I love jazz. I used to go hear jazz all the time in New York City. And oh man, you're having a great career. Look at all this great stuff you've done. And he was incredibly enthusiastic. I was kind of astonished. He said, I wish I could do your cover, but I can't because I'm legally blind now. I can't paint anymore. So, okay, so then my second best option was, I had already chosen this pose from Dust to Death as the one that would best work with the saxophone and the scenario and all that. So I thought, okay, if I could get permission to use that, then have somebody else paint a background, and put Doc Savage into that situation. So I wrote him again. I said, man, I'm so happy to hear from you. Wow, you're a jazz fan. I didn't, you know, you heard Charlie Parker. It was amazing, actually. He's an amazing guy. I said, you know, is there any chance that somehow I could get permission to use your pose from Dust to Death and put it into this, have someone else paint this background? This time the phone rings. Hey, this is Jim Bama. It's so much easier just to call you and talk. How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I love you. This is great what you're doing. I sent him a CD. Oh, your music is fantastic. I love jazz. I used to go to all the jazz clubs and the strip clubs. He went on and on and on. And he was so enthusiastic. He said, I'd be honored if you used my work on your CD cover. I'd be honored to be associated with a project like that. I couldn't ask for a better endorsement, but of course he didn't own any of the rights or any of the paintings. So then it became, you know, it was a total of 3 years figuring it all out. Bama told me to call Mr. Tolan, who put me in touch with people at Condé Nast, and then there was, you know, it took a long, long time because Columbia Pictures had bought these rights. And does anybody know what's going on with that? With Columbia Pictures?
He's still sitting on it. Jerry.
What's happening is Shane Black is doing the screenplay and directing it. The man who wrote the screenplay for Lethal Weapon, and who directed a movie called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. But it was put on the somewhat back burner because Shane got picked to direct Iron Man 3. So he's finishing Iron Man 3, but he's very enthusiastic. He's a big Hulk fan.
Well, I hope, you know, I hope something happens, but...
And I think the fact that he will come out of this with credentials for having directed Iron Man 3 should make that more of a possibility.
Anyway, it took a long, long time, and we had to go to Columbia Pictures and all this stuff. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but at the end of the day, and Bama sent me a letter. Here, give this to Condé Nast. It says, please give Scott Robinson permission. Oh, there's a letter. You're on the ball. Yeah, so he sends me this. It says, and that carried a lot of weight. You know, that did carry weight. part of one of his letters is reproduced in here. I don't think it's that one. I think it's a personal letter. Here. Well, a different one of Bama's letters to me is in here. Piece of. Anyway, it looked really bad for a while, and then finally I got the submission. You know, 10 years had gone by. Our bass player died. There were a lot of difficulties and a lot of expense and a lot of love and a lot of effort. And the thing is finally out. The darn thing's finally out. And I hope you'll all check it out. Let me know what you think.
Well, you happen to be going to Wyoming.
Oh yeah, I went to I had a concert coming up in Wyoming with Bob Minster Big Band, and I'm getting packed. I'm getting ready to go the next morning. Where am I going again? You know, because I'm traveling all the time all over the world. Wyoming. Oh, okay. How cold is it in Wyoming and everything? And I'm packing, and then I think, wait a minute. Bama lives there, and I got out a map and I looked, and I was playing in the next town over. And Wyoming is big and spread out, and I'm playing in the next town over. I said, you gotta be kidding me. I picked up the phone, I called him up, he says, come on over to the house. And, you know, he's a great guy, he was very friendly. A lot of people think, I know he's turned people away. He told me that he's turned people away. You know, he's gotta have the right feeling about it, but he just took to me right away. The jazz thing, he loved it, and he's become a really great friend. He says, come on over to the house, and you know, he showed me his punching bag, and we went down to his basement, and we had tea, and we talked, and we laughed, and we had a great time. He's a really great guy. So,
Is this picture taken on the way in or way out when you were leaving?
that's his house.
Yeah.
This is just when I'm arriving. That's where he lives.
Okay.
That's the garage. I think he's standing there. I think his punching bag is over here somewhere. He punches every day. He's 86 now, something like that. He still does push-ups and sit-ups. He punches his bag. He takes walks every day.
So he's in the basement.
He owns very little of his own work, so most of what you see here is prints.
Yeah.
He just told me he's got his new book coming out of the China stuff, the China paintings. It's pretty beautiful. He does have some original.
He signed something for you.
Oh, he signed my first Doc Savage paperback. There he is, signing it.
That's cool.
I plunked 10 cents down for that when I was a boy. There he is. Look at that. And there's the Dust of Death that we use on here. He said, you've got to be kidding. That's my favorite cover.
Yeah, this is
That's the favorite of all the. He was
I don't know
thrilled
why,
because
but
of that too, because that's the one I wanted to use. Couldn't believe it. That's what. Does anybody know if that painting exists anywhere?
Did we do a printer?
Because we just had to scan it from a paperback. Actually, from that paperback that he's signing right there. Nice view, huh? Have your coffee there.
Yeah, it's nice.
This is him and his wife.
Yeah.
What was her name?
Lynn.
Lynn.
His wife, of course, was his favorite model.
Yeah.
And she was also the subject on his all-time best-selling. Anyone know what Jimmy Bama's all-time best-selling paperback cover was?
Bradley the Werewolf.
No.
Harold Experiment.
Harold Experiment.
Yeah.
3 million copies.
Which one did?
The Harold Experiment. The sex love manifesto of the free love generation. And it's Steve Holland with his wife on the cover of the Harold Experiment.
Let me just.
There he's looking at his watch saying it's time for you to get the hell out.
No, he's locking the gate.
Actually, this is as I was leaving.
That's
we were
his
walking out.
.com watch that he's reading.
This is while we were walking back to the bus, and I gave him a CD of the music. He said, "Oh, this is great! I can't wait to hear it." I said, "I gotta warn you, it's kind of far out." And he goes like this. He looks at me and goes, "I'm far out." Okay.